Welcome everyone to another show of Retalk TV. Today we're going to talk about trust. What are trusts? What's a trust? I know a lot of people know about wills. Um, Not a lot of people know what a trust is, what entails, how to protect the home buyer. Remember, this channel is all about real estate, and that includes how to structure your real estate so that you can maximize on your real estate. So we're going to bring a very good friend of mine, Eric Campbell, and he is going to tell us a little bit more about trust. Eric, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for inviting me. I totally appreciate it. Wonderful show.
I'm glad you. I'm glad you were able to make it. I know you were in the green room for a little bit. Did you like it in there?
That's fine. It's beautiful out there.
So, Eric, today we're talking about trust, and I just thought of you because you've been doing this for quite some time, right?
Yep, well over a decade.
Wow. Yeah. So you know everything there is to know about trust.
I'm always learning because the laws are constantly changing. So it allows us the ability to just learn more about it each year. There's always new laws.
Yes. Yeah. That goes across the board. Real estate is always changing.
Mhm.
Everything is changing about real estate. That's why it's good to be doing these continuously. Now,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. Um, Tell us, what is a trust?
A trust, excuse me, that's like the $1 million question because everyone has a preconceived notion of what a trust is. They always think of like a trust fund baby. They just know they get money, but they don't know how. What a trust is, it's just a legal container. So just imagine you just had all these containers and you put one thing in that container. And that is the container that holds that particular asset or that particular um, thing. That's all we can say. It's always something of value. So you can put your house in a container, you can put your car in a container, and what it means is that now it's taken over ownership of that asset, that thing. And then you come in as a trustee, and what it is, you give someone else permission to manage it, and that's where a trustee comes in. And so, like a technical thing, I can give you a legalese term. It's a fiduciary relationship with one party, known as the trustor, that gives the other party, the trustee, the right to hold title, property, or assets for the benefit of a third party, which is a beneficiary. So that's kind of like the really like quick nuts and bolts of what a trust is. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Cool.
So it's basically having someone in between the transaction that could say, okay, this happened, so this is what we're going to do with this property, let's say, or
Right.
holding a value.
Yeah. It provides a legal protection for the trustor's asset.
Mhm.
So what it means is now it just shelters that asset for the trustor. And that's kind of what it does. And what it does, it makes the assets that are in there that are distributed according to their wishes. Because everyone has a wish on what they want to do once they pass away, what type of legacy. So the trust enables that to happen.
Now, what's the difference between because a lot of people say, well, I have a will, I'm well protected. What is the difference between a trust and a will? That's the big question.
I get that question all the time. That is such a fantastic question. You know, what's the difference between a will and a trust? A will is more of a want. It's something you want to happen. You know, and that's where a lot of people get, you know, when they go through, and I'm sure you've heard of this phrase, like, oh, we're going to contest the will.
Mm-hmm.
So when you understand what that is, a will is something you want to happen. The difference with the trust will happen. That is the biggest difference, because once you have something within a trust, depending on how it's written up, it will avoid probate.
Mm-hmm. So it's a good thing to have when you have a lot of children, let's say, right? Because usually that you see those kind of things, or in family members when you pass away and they're fighting over assets and properties. So that's a good thing to have when you're protecting. You want something to happen exactly how you want it, right?
Yes. The one thing that it does, it really gives the grantor, the person that wants to create all this stuff, the ability to move assets to those that they want to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the biggest things about it is that, if you have a big family, it's really hard to go, well, you're going to get a 10% cut of this, a 10% cut of that. It's really hard to distinguish, like, who's going to get the family jewelry, who's going to get mom's old car, who's going to get all her, clothes and stuff like that. When you put these things inside a trust, you can designate a successor trustee.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine you got the trustee, that is the original individual that is in management. But if something happens to them and they pass away, or they're no longer has the legal capacity to run that trust, now someone steps into that role. They just take over the asset. So imagine like you have a car, okay, and that's in a trust, and it's mom's car, and it's in a trust, and
Mm-hmm.
mom, unfortunately, all our moms do have a tendency to pass away, and same with our fathers. Now you have this asset. Who's going to take it over? Do I want to run down with the death certificate, go down to the local Department of Motor Vehicles and go through a whole bunch of paperwork, or I just want to get the keys and I already have the title in a trust? I'm already named as successor trustee. Why do I have to do anything else?
Yeah. So it's good to know, for people to know that a will can end up in probate, right? And how it could end up there for a very long time, because once you get attorneys involved, it's a nightmare. Anything.
Well, if you have a will, you still have a possibility to avoid probate, because there's going to be a reading of will and there's going to be a distribution of assets, like whatever this is, according to it. Then you want to make sure the validity of the will is correct, meaning that they did sign when they were lucid versus incapacitated and they're drugged up and signed something. That's when things get contested. But if a will is, there's a thing called a holographic will. It's like where you can write out your last will and testament. And once you sign it, and we know that's your signature, it's in a safe spot, and you have it there, they will follow the guidelines of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things when it comes to a will. So it can't avoid probate depending on what's written within the will. If there's an asset or something that hasn't been disclosed, well, of course, we want to find out who's going to be the receiving party of that. And that's when you get a lot of different things from the attorneys getting involved, the court now gets involved, because now we have to have someone adjudicate, like, well, whose asset is this? Who's going to be the responsible party? So that's kind of a little difference.
And I know that there's different ways of structuring them. Tell us a little bit about, like the basic ways of structuring them. I've heard of revocable, irrevocable. What is the difference?
Well, a revocable trust means that you can go to make any changes to it at any time. Irrevocable means that it's set in stone, meaning that this is the way it's going to happen. Most living trusts are written that way in a revocable sense because they want to ensure the asset is passed on to the decedent's heirs. So that's generally like what the difference is. Revocable means you can constantly make changes, move stuff in and out, and that's one of the things. Structure is generally the same. You're always going to have a trustee, someone that's going to manage the asset. You're going to have the grantor or creator, someone that's putting it together. Then you're going to have a successor trustee. This is the person that if the trustee is not able to manage it, run it, or do anything, they step into that role. So it's one of the legacy plans. And then finally, you have the beneficiaries. These are the entities or people that you want to benefit from that trust. So they're the ones that, let's say you have a rental property, and you don't want to give it ownership away to that son or daughter that's always in and out of relationships that can't even make, but you still want them to benefit from that. So every month the rent's paid, they can get a little stipend into a trust account. Now they get to receive a benefit of that, but they don't control the asset. That's generally the most ways that you can structure a trust. And it doesn't get any more simple than that.
Okay. And I see that how is this your company, or is this like Family Trust Service?
Oh, the Family Trust Service is a quick website to kind of give anyone that's watching this a quick idea of what trusts are, how do they work. If they want more information, they can gather that information, and that's just what that website is. And it's for families because that's where it really starts with most people, especially in real estate. They're really looking at their family and really how to build an empire, build a wealth, but it really starts with the family. How are we going to structure it within our family? How are we going to make things? And this is just a quick website. The principal partner for our firm, he's been doing this for over 40 years. So it's not my company. It's something that I work with, and I work with him in that regards, because it takes a team to put these things together, because everyone has different unique things in their life, and they have different elements that are needed within their overall structure. And so the familytrustservice.com is just a simple website for someone that wants to find some more information and really kind of start the path of like, is a trust really good for me? Is it right for me and my family? And this is where they can get a lot of their questions answered.
Yeah, it's always good to have a one-on-one before you go ahead and spend the money for a will, and then that wasn't it. I know there's a difference in price point, but there's also a huge difference in what happens when either of those go to work. Not that one is better than the other. You have a living trust, you have the health trust, the proxy. And
a lot of it, Aurora, it really, really comes into what is worth protecting for your family. Mm-hmm. What are the assets that are important that you don't want to lose? That's like the biggest thing trusts are designed for, is to protect assets, to build generational wealth, to build wealth within your own lifetime. And that's what trusts are structured. There's a lot of different types of trust out there. And my gosh, they are endless. There's some that will get you in trouble with local law enforcement agencies and the federal government, depending on how they're written. There's a lot of fraudulent trust out there where people set these things up just to take people's money. Mm-hmm. It isn't unfortunate. There's a lot of things. That's why it's always important to really establish, is the trust the right vehicle for my family? Mm-hmm. Do I have stuff that is worth preserving and passing off to the next generation? Those are some of the first questions that most people ask themselves as they start it. Because if you have a house in your name, you have a car in your name, you have money in a bank account that's in your name, the wise move would be let's probably move each one of these into their own private trust.
Mm-hmm. And what I meant was living will, not living trust. But I'm pretty sure there's probably something just like it when you structure a trust as well, right?
Well, there's a lot of verbiage out there, a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, it really comes out to how the trust is written, how it's put together. What are the terms that are within the trust? There are a lot of attorneys out there that will give you a nice big fat book of trust, which is a bunch of paperwork. It doesn't do very much good.
When you're doing real estate investments, mm-hmm. and you have a bunch of different people that are in an investment, is it better to just have an LLC or to have trust? What is the difference between that?
It depends on what county you're in and depending on who your lender is. Some of the lenders, as long as you have a viable EIN number that makes sense with a suitable operational agreement, they're okay with trust. Other lenders that are very unskilled and want to just follow a certain guideline, they'll prefer an LLC, and they're okay with the trust being there holding the property. Mm-hmm. So it depends on how you write it up and what the lender provides. Example, I have clients that buy large portfolios and stuff. So what it is that each one of the members are written into a trust holding agreement. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of like really establishing the parameters, who's in charge, who's getting what. And it really comes in, where does the money go? So as long as there's an account that manages the money, then there's another trust that actually manages the asset. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the best ways to structure multi, JV partners and stuff, because it's very clear and it provides exceptional transparency for every one of the members involved. Yes. And so that's kind of gives you an idea of how do you structure things using a trust for real estate purchases, joint ventures, or more than one person, coming along. And one of the best things is, once you do that, it doesn't encumber all your other projects. Mm-hmm. Meaning that you're not tied into that. It's its own separate vehicle and then you can go partner with some other people and work on another project as well. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Cool.
It's important to have these things in place when you're making investments, real estate investments, LLCs in the properties, trusts, if you're doing multiple partners, and there's so many ways of structuring a deal, but you just want to make sure that you give a call to Eric and make sure you get informed. Your situation, it's different than everyone else's, and if somebody might have a trust that requires 40 pages, yours requires 5. You never know, but the best way is to get informed for sure, so you can make an informed decision. What other services do you provide?
Well, we do offer a strategic tax planning service. We do offer a lot of strategic real estate investment suggestions on how to structure. We provide a lot of 401k, tax deferred programs and solo 401k. So if someone has money they want to redeploy, we have a service for that as well. And pretty much we have a complete family office. That means, like, if it comes to wealth building, we have counselors and advisors to advise you on that. We have business strategists to really kind of walk through, what's the best business move? Like, am I setting up my business correctly? Am I getting the maximum tax advantages here? And then we have a whole marketing division that's designed specifically to really help someone clarify their message on what their overall goal is. If they have a product they want to grow, and it really comes in to find out, like, what is it they're really looking for. And if we can help them, we provide them that service. If not, we have a bunch of referrals that we refer them out to, because we want to make sure that they're strategizing their life in the best way that fits for them while they're alive, so they can go ahead and pass this on to those that matter to them.
Thank you so much, Eric. It's been very, very good to know about trust, because the name is out there, but not a lot of people know enough about it. And this was great, bringing it to the people that come here and look at the channel for to get information on different things.
Well, I'm going to throw a couple of things in there just to give you some little, like, juicy bits that make sense.
Okay.
Trust work better than a prenup.
That's also good.
Yeah, how many people do you know have lost money because they thought they got married for love, or they filled out a prenuptial agreement and realized it was done incorrectly?
So hold on. So this is something that I didn't know about. So you can set up a trust before you get married and not have to go through a prenup.
Correct.
Wow, this is pretty cool, because now you don't have to go to your loved one and say, "Hey, can you sign a prenup?" and that whole embarrassing thing. You just set up a trust for the stuff that you have, right?
Yeah, and the trust also protects your intellectual property. It protects the things of value that you have created, and it means you don't have to share it with someone else, because it's designed to hold that asset or that idea for you. And one of the best things is that, let's say you have stalkers that are finding you because they do that, you can actually go private, meaning that it's very difficult for people to find out where you are, what you have, and what you do. Because nowadays with social media, which is like, the garbage of the internet, it just really, like, people are always trying to find out, like, what do you got? Yeah. And we're in such a litigious society that everyone wants to sue you. They want to find a way to get something that they didn't earn. And when you have a trust, imagine you're able to protect your money, you're able to protect your assets, you're able to protect your life, because sometimes you might get a judgment on you and you can't even open up a bank account, get a credit card, or do anything.
Yeah, and everything because you were trying to invest into a property, and all of a sudden you set it up as an LLC, and some of these LLCs could be, you could break the veil, what they call the corporate veil.
Yep, that's true.
A trust, you can't, right? So
the trusts are very, very, very difficult to find out, like, who owns it, because at the end of the day, it's the trust that owns it. Just like if we look at a Walmart store, there's managers that have keys to everything, but they don't own it, but they get to make all the decisions within that. And that's the way the trust is. You become a manager of that trust specifically for what the guidelines of the trust has been written for. It's all based on how it's written.
One more question. the beneficiary, the person who's getting the asset, if it's a revocable trust, can they make changes, or is that something that you could say, okay, they cannot make changes, or do they go into a irrevocable so that that person doesn't make changes?
It depends. It depends on how it's been written up from the get-go.
Okay.
So it's a lot of it is based on it's just pre-planning. I mean, just to give you an idea, every wealthy American uses these techniques. Every single politician, they use these techniques. Everyone that's telling you to do it this way, they all use trust to protect their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of them.
Yeah.
That's why you always heard the term, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, because the rich have decided to educate themselves on what to do.
Yeah.
And they don't wait to sit there and keep going, oh, let me do some more research. Let me think about it some more. No, people that actually are true entrepreneurs, they're smart enough to look at it and take action to preserve what they have. And a lot of people, when they look back over their lifetime, they realize if they would have did this early in their life, if a loved one, a parent, or someone that knew how to do it, explained it to them in their early 20s, their life would be much different when they get into their 50s, 60s, and 70s. This is one of the best ways that I have figured out to help any American, any human being start creating generational wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people will talk about it. All they do is people will talk, oh, I should do it. I should get this done. I should look more into it. And they end up shooting all over themselves because they end up getting into a legal predicament. And now they're like, oh, crap, I'm about to have a huge loss. And the loss is not just financially. They have an emotional loss. They have a physical loss because of the stress sometimes of these legal proceedings is so overwhelming. People literally will take sick, they will quit their job and literally can't handle it. So you start thinking about the value of is it really worth it to take a few hours, over the next, few months of my life to structure my life? Or do I want to deal with worry, fear, anxiety, oh, I don't know what I'm doing? Or do I want to be able to be well informed so I can make a good decision for not only myself, but for my family and my future generation?
Definitely. And trusts are usually a little more in the price point than a will would be, right?
Well,
But
trust, most people have no idea what a trust costs.
most people have no idea what a will is.
And to give you an idea, you can do a will, anybody can do a will by just writing it out and signing it and getting 2 witnesses. So a will is actually free. You just have to actually do it. Most people won't do it. Over 80% of the population does not even write out a will because I always think, I got tomorrow. I have tomorrow. That's why the probate courts are so filled up, because there's a lot of people that ended up waiting and waiting and waiting. And then all of a sudden they don't have the asset anymore. They don't have access to it.
No, and that's the other issue. When your asset goes into court, I mean, it's not because of the attorneys. They're just making a living. They're representing you. They're doing the job for you. But once an asset enters into court, I've seen assets get depleted because you have to pay the attorneys. And
they don't work for free.
Forever. You do not want your assets to go in there, because imagine you worked hard your whole life to have this asset, and God forbid your 2 kids are going to fight against it, and then they end up with nothing. So sometimes it's worth it to spend a little bit more so that you can say, okay, this is what you're going to get, and this is what you're going to get, and that's the end of it.
Well, just give you an example, Zamora. I had a client. All he had to do was sign the documents. Okay, it was written out. He was like, well, I don't know. I think I should, but I don't know. He ended up with an intestinal cancer. I go, hey, man, are you going to sign this, man, before you get too drugged up and you won't be able to make, lucid decisions? Nope. His daughter finally went to have him sign a will. And of course, the wife that was his 3rd or 4th wife or something that had been with him for a while, decided to contest it. The property went into probate. That entire family ended up yelling at each other, hating each other. And all he had to do was just sign. He would have given his family, like his kids, rights to the property. It would have taken care of his grieving wife. Like it could all worked out, but no, they ended up wasting. Yeah, but another one, and this is what happens to a lot of people. They get stuck on this thing called ignorance. They just don't want to do anything because they're like, it's not going to happen, and that's the way they've been programmed. Is to wait and not take action. They get stuck on money without looking at how much money you're going to lose if it goes through this type of litigation. They lost way more than the trust would have cost.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And
So that's one of my things is you worked really hard. You have this asset. It's worth this much. Don't be cheap. Don't be cheap on setting it up the right way. Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much. And we have Eric's number there. You could text trust to 619-332-2849, and he'll give you all the details that you would like on trusts, anything that have to do with trust and your scenario. So you can have more information there.
Yeah, probably one of the best things to just go to the website. Just literally go to the website, Family Trust Service, and that's where you'll find a lot of answers. That's the fastest way to get plugged in, is just go through that. So
thank you, Eric, so much. It was a pleasure having you. It's always a pleasure being your friend, and say hi to your family for me.
Thank you, my dear. I do appreciate it.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.